Welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're unpacking a pretty wild and highly unusual episode from the Mahabharata to explore a timeless ethical dilemma. We've got it all: one of the epic's absolute greatest heroes, a mystical underwater kingdom, and a high-stakes courtroom-style debate about right and wrong happening, well, literally at the bottom of a river. It's a story packed with tension that really forces us to examine the very nature of duty. So let's just dive right in.
Okay, to kick things off, we really need to confront the central question of this whole story. We all have rules we live by, right? Personal codes, professional ethics, whatever it might be. But what actually happens when following a strict rule ends up causing harm? Take a second to really think about that. This story gives us a profound look at the clash between strict, unwavering rules and situational ethics, and how we're supposed to navigate those incredibly tricky gray areas. To really get our hero's dilemma, we first need to define the absolute anchor of his life at this particular moment. Our protagonist, Arjuna, is bound by the vow of a Brahmacharin. Basically, this is a severe, uncompromising commitment to complete celibacy and intense religious study, which was commanded by his eldest brother, King Yudhishthira. For a warrior prince like Arjuna, this isn't just some casual promise, It's a sacred, unbreakable code of conduct tied directly to his honor and his spiritual standing.
And we're not talking about a short-term weekend cleanse here. Arjuna was bound to this vow for 12 years. 12 years of exile in the woods. I mean, think about the sheer weight of that for a second. That is a massive chunk of his prime adult life dictated by a single, remarkably strict rule. The stakes for his personal virtue, his family's reputation, and his own spiritual destiny, they literally could not be higher. Act 1, the grand setup. Let's set the scene for Arjuna's epic journey to the source of the Ganges. So Arjuna isn't just wandering the forest alone like some solitary hermit. Not at all. He's traveling with this massive, vibrant entourage. We're talking learned Brahmanas, incredible musicians, disciplined ascetics, and master storytellers. The text actually compares his grand procession to the god Indra being followed by the storm deities, the Maruts. So it's not a quiet exile. It's this majestic, moving community of cultural elites, basically turning the wild forest into a mobile academy of high culture. When this vibrant community arrives at the incredibly sacred source of the river Ganges, they settle in and make the space their own. His followers establish this beautifully serene environment by performing daily agnihotras. Just picture the scene. You've got the rhythmic chanting of ancient mantras echoing over the water, the rich smell of clarified butter pouring into blazing sacred fires, vibrant flowers everywhere. They completely transformed the wild banks of the Ganges into a breathing picture of absolute spiritual perfection. Which brings us to Act 2, the unexpected underwater abduction. One morning, Arjuna wades into the freezing currents of the Ganges for his regular ablutions. He's peacefully offering water to his ancestors when suddenly the tranquility is totally shattered. He is violently ambushed and dragged down into the churning depths. But here's the twist. He's not pulled under by a mindless sea monster. He's actually dragged to the bottom of the waters by Ulupi, the daughter of the Naga king Kauravya. She's a powerful princess from the majestic, serpentine line of Airavata. So Arjuna is instantly transported to the beautiful, subaquatic mansion of the Naga king. And honestly, this is where Arjuna's incredible discipline and kind of the wonderful absurdity of mythology really shines. Instead of, panicking about being kidnapped underwater, Arjuna calmly notices a sacrificial fire ignited in the palace. An underwater fire. And without missing a beat, he fearlessly steps up and completes his daily fire rituals right then and there. His devotion is so unflappable that the fire god Agni is deeply gratified. Only after respectfully finishing his ritual does Arjuna turn to his captor like, "Okay, who are you and why have you done this rash thing?" Moving on to Act 3, a clash of duties. Here is where the physical action pauses and a brilliant philosophical debate begins. Ulupi reveals her motives, and they are shockingly straightforward. She didn't abduct this legendary warrior out of political malice. No, she did it because, upon seeing him bathe in the river, she was entirely overcome by the god of desire. She admits she's unmarried, deeply afflicted by her longing, and pleads with him to gratify her, throwing herself entirely at his mercy. The desperation is just palpable. Arjuna, ever the steadfast rule follower, immediately drops his 12-year vow as a sort of impenetrable shield. He explains that he simply isn't a free agent.
He's bound by the strict command of King Yudhishthira. He proudly states he has literally never spoken an untruth in his life. But notice the terrible paradox here. His absolute commitment to his truth is exactly what is preventing him from doing the compassionate thing for a desperate person. He tells Ulupi he wants to do her pleasure if he can, but asks how he could possibly do that without completely destroying his sacred duty.
So we're looking at a fascinating, deeply complex clash of duties here. On one side, we have Arjuna's duty to his vow. It's a strict law commanded by his king. It demands 12 years of perfection, and it's tied to his lifelong commitment to truth. But on the exact opposite side is his duty to the vulnerable. This is the ancient, unspoken obligation of any true hero to relieve the distressed, protect the masterless, and, as Ulupi warns, literally save her life, because she vows to destroy herself if he rejects her. So what does this all mean? Which duty actually represents the higher virtue when they are on a direct collision course? And that brings us to Act 4, Ulupi's brilliant loophole. Let's see how Ulupi builds an absolute masterclass of a legal and ethical argument to solve this impossible puzzle. The really crucial point here is that Ulupi doesn't just beg. She argues with razor-sharp, irrefutable logic. First, she points out the true origin of the vow. It was created solely so the brothers wouldn't fight over their common wife, Draupadi. Second, she argues that being with a Naga princess in an isolated underwater realm has absolutely zero impact on Draupadi's life or the brothers' peace. Third, she brings up the ultimate stakes, her own life. If he rejects her, she's going to die of heartbreak. And finally, the knockout punch. She argues that saving a life is a far greater merit than a tiny, technical diminution of a vow. She completely dismantles the rigid letter of the law to reveal that saving her life is what actually upholds the true spirit of his heroic duty. Faced with this flawless, watertight logic, Arjuna concedes, and the text explicitly tells us that he does what she desires, making virtue his motive. This, right here, is the absolute crux of our explainer. Arjuna realizes that strict adherence to a rule, if it results in the tragic death of an innocent person actively seeking protection, well, that isn't virtue at all. It's just blind, prideful obedience to a technicality. True virtue requires nuance, and so, acting out of profound compassion rather than weakness, the mighty Arjuna spends the night in the Naga mansion. Which leads to our final section, the water boon. When morning comes, Arjuna rises with the sun. Accompanied by the chaste Ulupi, he peacefully returns to where the Ganges enters the plains. But before she leaves for her own abode, Ulupi grants Arjuna a spectacular boon. She declares that from this day forward, he will be completely invincible in water. Literally, every single amphibious creature will be vanquishable by him. For an ancient warrior constantly traversing wild landscapes and rivers, this is a massively valuable, life-saving asset. By choosing compassion over rigid dogma, he doesn't lose his honor, he actually gains a superpower. I'll leave you with this final thought straight from the wisdom of the ancient text. We all build rules to keep ourselves disciplined, safe, and on track. But when those strict rules inevitably encounter the complex, messy, and painful reality of human suffering, we have to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, are your rules actually serving your virtues, or are they just serving your pride? Sometimes the truest form of duty requires knowing exactly when a strict rule must be bent or even broken to do the right thing. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the rules you live by.